stand-up community subscribers and listeners from around the globe. It's time to Stand Up with Pete Dominic, where we ask the important questions that impact you, your family, and your community. Such as, could Bitcoin be the next revolution in invisible emotional transactions? And with intense rain and wind pounding the west, is it time to relax and reminisce about better weather with our family and also drink heavily? And now, the podcast host who can weather any storm imaginable with a shed, a microphone, and hot skin-tight bathing suit, Pete Dominic.
As always, Pete Co. with the opening. Thank you very much, sir, to Pete, who's in San Francisco, and everybody out there listening in California. Lots of California listeners. I hope you're okay. Crazy weather out there. We'll get to that in the news coming up. But oh, what a show have I got for you on this Monday, October 25th. If you're listening when it drops, it is a daily show. And today I'm joined by Maura Quint, as I am every Monday, Maura Mondays. Great conversation with Maura. Very excited for you to hear it, as well as the hilarious ad that she wrote and David Cross, the comedian, actually performed. I've got the audio of that for the Billionaire's tax. Very funny. Maura wrote it and David Cross performed it. Pretty cool. I'll play that for you. But before that, a very special treat, a very special guest joining me. My wife of 20 years, well, we met in 2000, is Valerie Vendrame. She has just come out of quarantine a few days ago. I shared on Thursday night with subscribers who rather hung out with me on Friday night that my wife got COVID, and it was bad. Breakthrough case, of course. She was vaccinated in March, so kind of early, but we talk all about it. And she takes us through what it was like specifically to lose her sense of smell and how much that destroyed her. I don't think I've ever seen her like this as a result of losing her taste and smell. She was devastated, and I didn't realize how important that was to really everybody. Some folks more than others, but we talked on Friday night at the Hangout about how we should talk more about the long-term effects of the disease, not the vaccine, because there aren't any, because there just generally aren't with vaccines, period. It's just not how it works. But we need to talk more about the horrible effects outside of just death with COVID. And we do. We had a great conversation. Val was awesome and vulnerable and honest. And so I'm really happy that she did it, that she agreed to do it. It's not her favorite thing to do, but it was great. And she was great. Maura Quint and Valerie Vendrame on today's episode of Stand Up. I think you're really going to like both of them. But I've got a lot to talk about in the news. Had a great weekend. We did the Screen Free Day. I highly recommend this. I can't recommend it any higher. If you've got kids of any age, especially if they're over the age of owning a phone, whatever that is in your community, it's around 11, 12. If you want to have friends, you got to have a phone so you can be in the text group so you can get invited to shit. It's a horrible double-edged sword. But we did the Screen Free. We do it 24 hours. You turn the phone in at 8 at night. You get it back the next night at 8 or whatever it is. And we did it Saturday going into Sunday. And on Sunday, we went apple picking as well. Val's feeling better, got her sense of smell back a bit. She can smell the apples and the leaves. And we had a wonderful day. And the girls were hilarious and joking with each other and laughing with each other. It was so special. And every time you put those phones away, I mean every time, beautiful things happen. Your kids blossom again. And it's just so important to do it for hours a day, much less entire days a month. I highly recommend it. It's worked so well for us. And so we had a great Sunday. Also, I opened for J.L. Cauvin, the great J.L. Cauvin, Saturday night at the Triad Theater in New York City. Sold out show. And J.L. absolutely crushed for his album taping, his new album taping. And I'll have him on to talk a little bit about that. It's great to see some listeners there. Specifically, Tom and Leslie were there from Noble Pies. And they brought us pie. So not only do I have apples and other goodies, I have pie. So all of that puts me in a fantastic mood. And JL was absolutely hilarious. He killed for well over an hour. It was really fun. And I'm sure it's because I did such an awesome job opening for him as well. So Hope you had a great fall weekend, and very happy to have you joining me today. Lots to talk about in the news. Here's my version of what I think are some of the most important stories from the past couple of days over the weekend. News and sound, time for the last 24. All right, I don't do COVID news every day, but it is Monday, so let me give you the state of the virus in the United States of America and some sound to go with it. It's time for
COVID news.
Well, COVID news is depressingly brought to you by Noble Pies, noblepies.com. If you bring a pie to my show, I'm going to give you plugs on this show. Noblepies.com. Hey, Thanksgiving is around the corner. All the holidays are coming. The best time to get pie is right now. And where do you want to get pie? You can order it, noblepies.com. Let's see some orders coming in. Okay, time for your COVID news. Let's just start with the vaccination numbers. Apparently, 96% of Americans 65 and up have one dose, and 85% of Americans 65 and up have two doses. They're fully vaccinated and hopefully on their way to get boosters. The percentage of Americans 12 and up who are fully vaccinated is 67%. And of all ages, it's just over half, and soon younger kids are going to be able to get vaccinated as well. The country averaging about 75,000 new cases of COVID a day. That's fewer than half as many as were being reported in early September, but about 5 times as many as were being identified in June before the Delta variant had spread widely. Deaths and hospitalizations are also declining sharply, so more good news. More than 50,000 coronavirus patients are hospitalized nationwide. Around 1,500 deaths are being reported each day. Still, 1,500 Americans are dying every single day of COVID still at this point in October of 2021. Case numbers remain persistently high in many western states, including Alaska, Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho, leading the country in recent cases per capita. Only 3 states, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Colorado, are averaging more cases now than they were 2 weeks ago. And the situation in the South continues to improve, which is good. Florida, which averaged more than 20,000 cases a day during much of August, is now reporting around 2,200 new infections daily and has one of the lowest per capita rates in the nation. As we talk about with my wife today, you don't want to get this. Those of you who know somebody or have lived with somebody or learn a lot about it realize you don't want to get it. And Neil Cavuto has MS, multiple sclerosis. He is a Fox Business anchor, and he got COVID. And so he is come on Fox News this Sunday to tell Howie Kurtz about why he thinks people should get vaccinated in a diplomatic and very magnanimous, very generous with his comments here, but still saying you got to get vaccinated. Here's Neil Cavuto on Fox Business yesterday, or Fox News, actually, yesterday.
I feel very strongly, and I know we live in this hyper, politicized age, that people get vaccinated. I know, a lot of people say that's a private decision. I get that. I appreciate that. But I'd like to urge people of all sorts, please get vaccinated. This situation, for me, being immunocompromised, half the cases we're hearing on the breakthrough front are among the immunocompromised. People like me who've had, and have multiple sclerosis or prior heart situation or cancer. There are many like that all around us. And mine is not a secret at Fox, but there are plenty of people working around you, Howie, and at Fox and all types of business environments who are susceptible to this sort of thing. You can help them out a lot. If whatever your views on mandates, and I get that, no one likes to be ordered to, but in the end, if you can get vaccinated and think of someone else and think of what that could mean to them and their survivability from something like this, we'll all be better off.
Well, as a result of those comments on Fox News, I am sure Neil Cavuto had a really fun Sunday reading emails and tweets threatening him and his family. You know what happened. Come on. Well, over on CNN, Jim Acosta and Brian Stelter kind of dunking on Fox and giving credit to Neil Cavuto for those comments. Here they are talking about it on Sunday on CNN, just after it happened.
Those who have been vaccinated are in far better position right now to survive this and even handle cases where they come down with this.
I mean, does Cavuto's message make him a man on an island at Fox News, do you think?
He does a bit, and he's been a man on an island there for years because he was never all full MAGA the way many of his colleagues were. But that's what makes him unique and important at Fox, and it's good to see that he only has a mild case of COVID. He's able to be back on television. He said very bluntly to the Fox viewers, stop the deaths, stop the suffering, please get vaccinated, please. However, on the same network this weekend, Lisa Booth went on the air and proudly talked about how she's not vaccinated, and she did it because she doesn't think she's in danger. But then she said, I'm doubling down on being unvaccinated as a giant middle finger to Joe Biden's tyranny in America. You know, some of these Fox stars think they are in some kind of revolutionary war against vaccines. And unfortunately, that's more the norm than Neil Cavuto's honest statement today. So you really do have a tale of two foxes. And unfortunately, the Cavuto side is losing, although thankfully he is winning his fight against COVID.
Yeah, it's always Red Dawn for some of these guys over at Fox.
Right.
But good for Neil Cavuto. I mean, we need more of that. Be like Neil. In a world at Fox News, be more like Neil.
All right. Well, let's now go to Dr. Fauci, who is under a lot of scrutiny, as always. But the NIH came out and said that maybe they did do some gain-of-function research in Wuhan lab. Maybe they funded that. And Rand Paul, the senator, is claiming vindication and saying that Dr. Fauci should be fired. And also Dr. Fauci and NIH under fire for some kind of inhumane experiments that were taking place in some African country, I forget where, on dogs, which sounded pretty unbelievably horrific. But NIH is really under the microscope. I think the focus on a personality or a specific scientist or physician, in my opinion, it's kind of ridiculous. But they always want a scalp, always want someone to blame. This is a huge organization that does, I think, the vast majority. I don't know. Well, I'll talk with Dr. Jon Carroll about this, but NIH in terms of funding and how many amazing research grants they've given, probably hundreds of thousands of millions that have saved billions of people's lives, I'm thinking, but not all of it is, and then when you cherry pick certain things, you make it sound certain things really bad, worse than they might be. It's complicated. I think that people's knee-jerk reactions that don't understand how scientific research funding works, everybody thinks they're an expert on that, but unless you've ever had a grant funded, I really don't want to hear your opinion, and I haven't, so I won't give you mine, but I will talk to experts who have and listen to them more. Anyway, here is Dr. Fauci under the gun with the questions coming from ABC News. This is George Stephanopoulos.
The controversy over whether the U.S. was funding risky COVID research in Wuhan was kicked up again this week when the NIH released a letter about that research, which showed that the subcontractor had not disclosed some results in a timely manner. Now, some critics and analysts have seized on that to say you and others have misled the public about U.S. funding of this so-called gain-of-function research. The NIH says that's false. Our medical unit backs that up. But Senator Rand Paul stepped up that criticism in a new interview with Axios on HBO. Let's play it.
Dr. Fauci should be fired. Absolutely. By the president. Yeah, absolutely. The thing is just for lack of judgment, if nothing else. He's probably never going to admit that he lied. He's going to continue to dissemble and try to work around the truth and massage the truth.
I want to give you the opportunity to respond to Senator Paul, but also explain what was the United States funding, what wasn't it funding, and why that's important.
Well, I obviously totally disagree with Senator Paul. He's absolutely incorrect. Neither I nor Dr. Francis Collins, the director of the NIH, lied or misled about what we've done. The framework under which we have guidance about the conduct of research that we fund, the funding at the Wuhan Institute was to be able to determine what is out there in the environment in bat viruses in China. And the research was very strictly under what we call a framework of oversight of the type of research. And under those conditions, which we've explained very, very clearly, does not constitute research of gain of function of concern. There are people who interpret it that way, but when you look at the framework under which the guidance is, that is not the case. So I have to respectfully disagree with Senator Paul. He is not correct that we lied or misled the Congress. It's just not correct, George. I'm sorry.
Right, and it showed that what was being researched was very far from the SARS-CoV virus, but it did show that the subcontractor did not release some results in a timely manner. What did we learn from the letter? Does it show that some of the research we were funding was riskier than we know?
No, it isn't. We knew what the risk was and what the oversight is. Certainly, they should have put their progress report in a timely manner. No denial of that, and there will be administrative consequences of that. But one of the things that gets mixed up in this, George, and it really needs to be made clear to the American public, there's all of this concern about what's gain of function or what's not, with the implication that that research led to SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19, which, George, unequivocally, anybody that knows anything about viral biology and phylogeny of viruses know that it is molecularly impossible for those viruses that were worked on to turn into SARS-CoV-2 because they were distant enough molecularly that no matter what you did to them, they could never, ever become SARS-CoV-2. And yet, when people talk about gain of function, they make that implication, which I think is unconscionable to do, to say, well, maybe that research led to SARS-CoV-2. You can ask any person of good faith who's a virologist, and they will tell you absolutely clearly that that would be molecularly impossible. So things are getting conflated, George, that should not be conflated.
Okay. Any questions? Anybody? Would love to know what your follow-ups are on that. My brother's been someone who's criticized that. And, bro, if you heard that, would love to know what your follow-up is. All right, let's go to one more question and answer from George Stephanou on This Week with Dr. Fauci. COVID-19 vaccines for children will be, quote, very likely available the first or second week of November, according to Dr. Fauci.
Let's talk about kids. Pfizer reported on Friday that its vaccine is safe and effective for the younger children, ages 5 to 11. FDA is meeting next week. So should we expect kids to start getting vaccinated in November?
I would think so, George. You never want to get ahead of the FDA in their regulatory decisions, nor do you want to get ahead of the CDC and their advisors on what the recommended would be. But if you look at the data that's been made public and announced by the company, the data look good as to the efficacy and the safety. The FDA and their advisory committee will be meeting next week on October the 26th, and then their regulatory decision will be handed over to the CDC, likely November 2nd or 3rd. So if all goes well and we get the regulatory approval and the recommendation from the CDC, it's entirely possible, if not very likely, that vaccines will be available for children from 5 to 11 within the first week or two of November.
And that is going to come as a huge relief to a lot of folks who have kids that age. It's going to be a game changer for them the way it has been for the rest of us and our parents and everybody else. So that's something to look forward to at the beginning of November as well. And meanwhile, over in the Legion of Doom,
deep within a bleak and dismal swamp, hidden beneath its murky waters, lies the headquarters of the most sinister villains of all time, the Legion of Doom.
And here they are, Maria Bartiromo and the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis.
Well, fortunately, we've been able to fight back very effectively against mandates imposed by, for example, local governments against police fire. Maria, these people we've been hailing as heroes, the nurses we've said have been heroes this whole time. They've been working day in and day out. They couldn't do their job on Zoom. They had to be there, and they did it, and they did it with honor and integrity. Now you have people that want to kick them out of their job over this shot, which is basically a personal decision.
A personal decision. Always a great, super helpful thing to say and believe. All right. Well, that's all I've got for your COVID news. Lots more happening, lots more to play for you, though, including former President Barack Obama out on the campaign trail, both in Virginia and New Jersey, for two gubernatorial races that are coming down to the wire, unfortunately, because the Republican candidates are absolutely both insane, horrible people. But let's first check in with former President Obama. Always does a really good job on the campaign trail, on the stump. In Virginia, campaigning for his friend Terry McAuliffe.
We don't have time to be wasting on these phony, trumped-up culture wars, this fake outrage that right-wing media peddles to juice their ratings.
All right, here's more from President Obama talking about how they're trying to rig the elections, just basically laying out Republican strategy.
Why is it Republicans don't want you to vote? What is it that they're so afraid of? Yeah, you know, I would assume, Terry, if they think they've got better ideas, why don't they just go make the case? Tell us your ideas. Tell us why you think they're going to be better. Tell us how it's going to help that man get a job, or help that young person go to college, or help that person get a trade. Hey, just explain it. And if you've got good ideas, people will flock to your ideas, but that's not what they try to do. Instead, you're trying to rig elections. Because the truth is, people disagree with your ideas. And when that doesn't work, you start fabricating lies and conspiracy theories about the last election, the one you didn't win. That's not how democracy is supposed to work.
And by the way, I don't know if he says this in his stump speech, or I'm sure he said it in other places, but the best example of what he's saying is when they tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. When they tried to repeal, when Republicans had both the House and Senate, they couldn't do it because they didn't have an idea. They really didn't have an idea that would do as much as the Affordable Care Act would do in terms of cost, coverage, and access and quality. They didn't have that. They couldn't replace it because it was their idea to begin with. It was always a conservative idea of a mix of private and public marketplace insurance programs, the exchanges, all of that. That's a great example of what he's saying, not to mention on issues like immigration or the other issues where they actually don't want to do anything about guns, for example, at all, or climate, or obviously democracy and voting rights. So they don't have ideas. That's a great commentary and argument, as always, well articulated, performed by former President Obama out on the campaign trail for Virginia's Terry McAuliffe. Where it's close, get out and vote for the Democrat in Virginia, folks. Now, here is Andrea Mitchell sitting in Meet the Press asking Republican Senator Roy Blunt, who's become more and more extreme from Missouri, if Election Day was an insurrection, because that's what President Trump said. President Trump said, well, listen.
I wanted to ask you about some statements that the former President Donald Trump made just this week. On Thursday, he said the insurrection took place on November 3rd, Election Day. January 6th was the protest. Was Election Day an insurrection?
You know, I think the election was what it was. There's a process you go through that determines whether or not the early reports were the right reports, and we went through that process. And I'm of the view that the best thing that President Trump could do to help us win majorities in 2022 is talk about the future.
All right, all the talk about the future stuff. Talk about the future. Let's not look back. Imagine having that philosophy on anything else, any other crime, any other thing that someone did to you. Someone insults you, someone punches you in the face, and then says, you know what? Let's just look to the future. Don't worry about the fact that I just punched at you or screamed at you or called you a name. Let's just look ahead. That's not how it works. Nobody gets better. We don't heal. We don't do better if we don't have accountability, right? Isn't that a pretty average philosophy about life and living? But that's the talking point. Let's just look at the future. Democrats use that sometimes as well when they find it politically expedient. I mean, everybody does, I think. Here's one more in that interview.
Doesn't the party have to disavow the challenge to the election in order to, go forward?
You know, I think President Biden and the Democrats are giving us plenty of things to talk about. We don't need to keep focusing on
But the Republicans are. Republicans keep talking about the past.
Well, I'm not.
And
I don't think many Republicans in the Senate are.
Okay, Roy Blunt. He has become a joke as well. Now let's listen to Congressman Ro Khanna, Democrat, California, talking about his colleague in the Senate, Senator Kirsten Sinema, on Fox News Sunday. Ro Khanna always goes over there.
But I guess my question for Senator Sinema is, she voted against the Trump tax cuts, and I just don't understand why she's not willing then to raise some of the rates back to what they were before the bill she voted against was, and she hasn't explained it to anyone.
That's because she hasn't explained anything to anybody, which is what's frustrating so many of us, that she doesn't even try to explain herself. Now, this is a really important, I think, piece of commentary. This is House Speaker Nancy Pelosi making an appearance on CNN's State of the Union with Jake Tapper, saying there will be a deal on President Biden's social safety net plan and that Biden's infrastructure bill will pass the House in the coming week. At least that's the plan.
So are you saying in the next week the framework will be agreed to, or there will be a deal on the social safety net bill?
Let's call it an agreement.
An agreement. There will be an agreement on that, and you will also vote for the bipartisan infrastructure bill. Both of those things will happen in the next week.
That's the plan.
That's the plan.
And right now...
All right, here's a little bit more from that interview.
And we will have something that will help meet the president's goals. I feel very confident about that, even though it will be different than what we originally proposed.
By the time he leaves for Europe, do you think you'll have a deal by Thursday or Friday?
No, I think we're pretty much there now.
You think you have a deal now?
We're almost there. It's just the language.
All right, well, she might just be using that appearance and those comments to try to cajole anybody into signing up for the deal. Here's one more from that interview, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on COVID and Biden's performance.
And I want to commend President Biden for having a completely different approach than his predecessor on this. We have to correct a lot of what went wrong then, and we're on a good path. And that was all on Jake Tapper's State of the Union. I like Jake Tapper a lot. I like his commentary, and here is some of the commentary. Piece of his commentary at the end of his show yesterday. He and several others have been trying to make the point over and over that there are two wings of today's Republican Party, the kind of crazy conspiracy racist, the election was actually won by Trump and COVID isn't real wing of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and so many more, Donald Trump, of course. And then there's the Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney branch, but it's pretty clear which side the majority leadership is siding with. Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell are going with the crazies. It seems clear. Here is Jake Tapper talking about tweets from Lauren Boebert and J.D. Vance after Alec Baldwin accidentally killed a woman on the set of his film. I thought this was pretty powerful, sobering, and accurate.
But there's something about our politics right now that is driving people away from our shared humanity. Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert of Colorado apparently spent some time and did some digging and found an Alec Baldwin tweet from 2014 about the hands up, don't shoot movement. Baldwin is, of course, not only a progressive, but very aggressive and outspoken about liberal issues, including gun control. And the Colorado Congresswoman thought it was funny to exploit hands up, don't shoot to make a joke at the expense of Baldwin, but more importantly, really, to make a joke at the expense of Helena Hutchins and her husband, Matthew, and her son, Andros. More disappointing, perhaps, was a tweet from J.D. Vance, a former Marine, Yale law grad, author of Hillbilly Elegy. Vance was even for a time a CNN contributor, hired because of his perceived insight and empathy. Vance is a conservative for whom a lot of folks once had great hope would rise to become a real leader. But he's running in a Senate Republican primary in Ohio that seems to have become the fear factor of American politics, with contestants positioned against one another as to who can performatively appeal best to the lowest common denominator. Vance, joking, asked for Twitter to remove its ban on Donald Trump because, quote, we need Alec Baldwin tweets. In other words, Vance appears to be saying, we need to see Donald Trump attack Alec Baldwin hours after this tragedy, at this moment, to exploit this horror in which an innocent woman, mother, wife, artist, was killed. Vance seems to want Trump to attack and mock, for a global audience, Alec Baldwin for killing a woman in what almost certainly was a tragic accident, regardless of the pain of Matthew Hutchins or Andros Hutchins, and however this impacts Baldwin. And really, I mean, how might such an incident impact you? And he did this, J.D. Vance. He did this. Why? Presumably because he thinks it will help him win supporters. He did it to win votes. In other words, the cruelty is a feature of his candidacy, not a bug.
And let me just fast forward. Tapper wraps up this commentary with this.
A longtime Republican official texted me after J.D. Vance's tweet, quote, being a horrible person, he wrote, is now actually a job requirement in this party, unquote. I hope to God that that Republican official is wrong.
Unfortunately, I don't think he is. I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point. The only thing I don't like or agree with Jay Tapper and others is that they're not able to say that yet. I mean, he knows that it's true. It's terrifying and the most upsetting and unsettling fact of today's politics. So, well, there you go, folks. Sorry to end on a depressed note in terms of the sound I've got, but let's lighten it up or just move along with what I have left, and that is the rest of the headlines. Here now is today's news dump. Oh, and today's news dump is a dig at listener Chris Green, who complained that Pete Coe was too often using what's called the Wilhelm scream. I guess this scream is famous somehow. I didn't even know about that. But Chris Green was upset. He tweeted Pete and me about it. And so Pete Coe gets his vengeance now.
Listener Chris Green hates the scream, feeling like a grump. He'd better plug his ears for today's news dump.
Actually, there were like 4 more screams in there, but I edited a couple of out because it even got to me, Pete. That was great. All right, here's what I've got for you. Headlines remaining in today's news dump. Let's start with this horrible, crazy story coming out of, I guess, Kansas, also Minnesota, Texas, and Georgia, where people got sick with a rare tropical disease, and some even died. Now, Walmart is recalling this room spray after 4 cases, 2 fatal, of a rare infection linked to a $4 room spray. Better Homes and Gardens aromatherapy, lavender, and chamomile essential oil and semi-precious stone-infused room spray. The Consumer Product Safety Commission and Walmart issued a recall Friday for 3,900 bottles of the spray. Hey, I thought essential oils were supposed to relax you and calm you down, not kill you. Well, read about it at CBS News, Washington Post, CDC doing a great job narrowing down and investigating what had made these folks sick. It's an interesting story just to read about how they do their work. The FDA announced it's going to make a big shift on hearing aids. Nearly 5 years after it was urged to make affordable hearing aids available over the counter, FDA taking a big step toward that goal. Plan released last week, the agency says it'll create a new category of hearing aids that will be made available online and over the counter without a prescription and without a visit to a doctor or audiologist for a hearing exam. Read more about that at the Washington Post. Oh, this is an interesting, crazy story. For 3 years, for 3 of the past 6 years, Kristen Lammert has spent August 25th in a delivery room. She has had 3 daughters all on the same day. They're not triplets or twins. The family has 3 daughters born on August 25th. She calls herself a planner, but nothing could have prepared her for how her pregnancies played out. 3 daughters born 3 years apart on the same day. How about that? I thought that was a fun story, and I wanted to share it with you because it seems like a good story, right? We could all be happy about that. There's a lot of fun there. La Nina is coming, everybody. That means that La Nina is going to be joining us again this winter, according to federal forecasters. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, Climate Prediction Center released its official winter outlook on Thursday, confirmed that La Nina conditions will be in place from December to February. Not a total surprise, but also the Northeast is supposed to have a more mild winter, I guess. But read more about that at NPR or go to NOAA Climate on Twitter. And speaking of weather, 2 big weather events converged over the weekend on the West Coast. Love to hear from our West Coast listeners. Hopefully you're doing all right. Let me know how that has landed out there for you. Hopefully there's no damage or anything like that. The Philadelphia Transit Union authorized to call strike. Workers for the Philadelphia Air Transit System have voted to authorize a strike next month if agreement isn't reached on a new contract. The Transport Workers Union Local 234 said a voice note. On Sunday morning, meeting in South Philadelphia approved a motion to allow union leaders to call a strike if agreement with the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transportation Authority is not reached in a week. A group of about 2,000 mainly Central American migrants are continuing their mass trek from the southern Mexico city of Tapachula, reaching a town about 16 kilometers away. Migrants started out before dawn to avoid the burning heat, mostly from Honduras and El Salvador, many accompanied by small children. All right, one bad guy, we assume, was caught. One was killed over the weekend. U.S. military said Saturday it killed a senior al-Qaeda leader with a drone strike Friday in northwest Syria. And Colombian government authorities caught a major drug kingpin. Colombian forces captured the country's most wanted drug lord Dario Antonio Usaga. I don't know how to say his name, but he was caught in his hideout near the Panama border on Saturday. He's the leader of Colombia's largest criminal gang. He is a bad guy. I read an article about him today. All right, well, you are all caught up 35 minutes in. You've got the headlines. You've heard the sound. Those are the stories I picked to talk about. There are many others, always open to your submissions. You are a producer of the show. If you want to be, you can leave me a voicemail. You could send me a message in many different ways, many forms of communication ways to reach your pal, Pete Dominic. So standupwithpete@gmail.com, always the best one. Okay, I've got two great women joining me here on today's show. Coming up, the great Maura Quint joins me almost every Monday. We talked about her campaign to tax billionaires, which her organization is leading, as well as the some in the U.S. Senate and Congress. Really important there. We got into some personal stuff, as we always did, which was super fascinating, vulnerable, and interesting. Always great with Maura. But I also convinced my wife to come out to the shed for a conversation about having COVID. My wife got COVID a couple weeks ago now, and has just recovered, but it was not easy. And we wanted to talk about the lingering effects and how much more consequential they are than I think a lot of people know. Many of you do, many of you don't. I certainly didn't quite understand the impact, having not, even though my daughter had it, it just wasn't that severe for her. It certainly wasn't that traumatic. And it was for Val, though. Val and I together for 20 years. We met in Interlaken, Switzerland, when we crossed paths literally on a hiking trail near a beautiful waterfall. We've been together for a long time. I guess this is 21 years. And the girls are 14 and 16 now. Val is got her own business as a personal trainer, a yoga teacher. You can take her classes virtually. You should follow her on Facebook. That's where she's most active, social media. That's Valerie Vendrame. Reach out and ask her to be your friend. She would love, I know she would love to hear from you on this interview. And she's also on Twitter and Instagram at VVYoga, Y-O-G-A. She's not too active there. She posts every once in a while. But definitely message her on Facebook, or you could even email her at vvyoga1@gmail.com to learn more about taking virtual yoga or fitness classes, which several of you have or already do. I've been super worried about her, but I'm so glad she's feeling better and is recovering. Hopefully she'll make a full recovery, even though a lot of people don't and have all kinds of issues. I'm real proud of this conversation. I think you're going to like it. Here we go.
So on Friday night, I'm hanging out with like 40 listeners, and that's when I first told listeners of this podcast that my wife had just recovered from COVID. I didn't, of course, tell anybody that she had it. I asked her permission before I went out to the hangout if we could start talking about it. She said yes. And then during the conversation, we talked about how we should focus so much more on all of the side effects, short and long term, of COVID, rather just on the statistics surrounding death, because there's a lot more to it, and there are other ways to define loss. And that's what I learned from Val, which is why I invited her to come and join me on the podcast in conversation about her experience. She doesn't love doing this. She's really good at it. She agreed to do it. And so here now, my conversation with Valerie about dealing with COVID-19. Hi, Val.
Hi.
Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
So one point is that
yes,
is that I kind of feel like certainly in New York State, we kind of thought it was over. Did you feel that way at all in terms of the way that you were behaving and thinking about it? You know, we weren't wearing masks in stores. And did you think it was kind of like over for us, the worst of it, the fear? I felt that way. Did you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I wasn't really worried.
Do you think you let your guard down at all with work in terms of the way that you were training people or talking to people?
I wasn't doing, I mean, I wasn't overly cautious, I guess. Yeah. I wouldn't say I let my guard down. I never had it like up.
Right.
After I got vaccinated, especially. Just very, you know, the stats were really pretty in our favor around here. So I thought it was, in the clear, I guess. I was definitely nervous before I went to Italy. I'm always nervous before travel. So I guess I would say I was a little more cautious then.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Because I can't go, obviously. Or not feeling well. So before travel, I was a little more cautious. But once getting back, no, not at all.
So when you realized that you had gotten it, I mean, let's just say after the second positive test, emotionally, were you just so surprised that it happened, or were you starting to just get scared about what it meant? By the way, I feel like this is not a question I can ask most people about when they got COVID or how they felt about it, because people don't, but I wanted to ask, and I felt more comfortable asking you, obviously. So what were your emotions around when you realized you were positive?
Well, it has been over 6 months since I got vaccinated. So I guess it wasn't that much of a shock, although, breakthrough infections happen within, weeks, months of getting vaccinated. Yes, it could happen, but I was scared. That was the immediate reaction. I was scared. I had a scare a few months ago in December when I went away for a couple of days and came back with a fever, and I thought for sure I had COVID, but I hadn't gotten tested yet, but I just was so afraid. So I've had brushes with this, and I think we all have in a way, when we get sick now, it's like a whole new meaning to getting the sniffles than before.
Yes.
It's like, oh my gosh, I could die. I have a little scratch in my throat. Am I going to die? It's a whole nother level than we're used to. So, there's always a certain fear now of getting sick. But when I got that positive test, it was almost disbelief. And then it was just a paralyzing fear. I remember just crying, just not knowing what's going to happen. There's so much around this, it's just so weighted. And you can say, you're young, you're healthy, but there's plenty of young and healthy people that have landed in the hospital. I think people that aren't afraid might be in denial, the people that don't want to get vaccinated are just fed these lies that you're going to be fine. You just take some vitamin D and vitamin C and vitamin A and, make sure you have a healthy diet and exercise and you're going to be totally great. So I think that's true to a degree, but you just don't know. You just really don't know what the odds are for you in particular. So I was definitely afraid, and the first 48 hours were really scary.
You are now 46 and as healthy as any 46-year-old woman we know. And you don't really make any unhealthy choices. Drink, eat, exercise, emotionally, like you're constantly working.
I don't smoke. I don't have any pre-existing conditions.
Right.
Yes, but there's still that there are people that still, with my background have landed in the hospital. So I don't take anything for granted. And I, I'm the kind of person that obviously the line of work that I do, I take health very seriously. So when there's something that compromises my health, it really affects me. So so I was terrified.
Because when something compromises your health, it affects you more than maybe somebody who isn't as conscious about health. And
I don't.
Or because you're so healthy and you get an illness, like how come it's me and not Pete who smokes and drinks and eats pizza?
No,
or other people.
I think I'm just hyper aware of like how I feel all the time, and I want to feel good. So when I don't, it bothers me.
What was in those first 48 hours? And what were describe some of your symptoms and what was the kind of the worst part of it?
Well, COVID isn't like any other in cold or flu because there's just so much baggage to it, right? It's like I've had chills and fevers and, colds. And it was basically the combination of the worst cold ever had in my life and the worst flu ever had in my life. Married. I mean, it was those two things getting together. And, never though do I fear, dying when I have the flu. It just never have I had that concern. So, you have the anxiety of, am I breathing? Okay. Are my O2 levels, high enough? Is this chest pain normal? When I have to constantly check my oxygen, because if it drops, I have to run to the ER. I mean, the urgent care doctor, just emphasized consistently, if it drops below this number, you have to go immediately to the ER. So every time I'm checking my oxygen, I'm having like a panic attack.
And you checked your oxygen with a little device that you put on your finger. It's like $25. Because
and every time I put it on, I would just freak out. Please God, don't be below 90. She said 95 for me, but I think there's a range from 80.
And you did that about every 7 minutes, would you say?
Probably. And
well, I just want to ask you the other thing about that is.
But there's also one more thing I wanted to say is that there's the anxiety of getting other people sick.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Yes.
Yeah. So there's not only the anxiety that you might have to go to the hospital, and I'm aware that, in the back of my head, I always told myself, you're vaccinated. I had that voice to try to calm me down. The people that go in the hospital are usually unvaccinated. So that kept me calm. But, there's always the exception. So yeah, I also I kept in constant contact with all the people that mainly my clients that I was in contact with when I had no idea that I was contagious. I got it from a client who was also vaccinated, and I didn't have a symptom for 2 days. And then I had just a mild sore throat. But again, like a mild sore throat, you don't take that as seriously as, flu symptoms. So I had to worry about all these clients that I saw that and there were a few of them were very high risk. So that was also a stress. So there's just a combination of stressors that are happening while you're laying there feeling absolute ass. Like there was nothing. I couldn't read. I couldn't watch TV. My head was pounding. My eyes were burning. My body was aching. There's nothing you could do but lay there and just stress, basically.
Yeah. That's what I wanted, the point I wanted you to make, and you got to it without me even asking, which is with other illness, with cancer, with almost every other serious illness, much less minor illness, you don't have to worry, did I give this thing that I have to somebody else? Am I responsible for somebody else being sick? And that is probably it just makes everything harder. You're emotionally concerned and stressed and anxious about how you got it and who you gave it to.
Yeah. Oh, in the first 24 hours, I had no idea how I got it. So that was also stressful. Right. Or when I got it, which is also a big deal because apparently the days count. You're supposed to count, right? Because you have 10 days of quarantine from the first symptom. And then, day 5, you're supposed to turn a corner. And if you don't turn, there's all these rules that I had no idea of. It's hard to manage that if you don't know when exactly your first symptom was. I had just came off a long flight, so I was exhausted for a couple days. I didn't know if that was COVID or if it was jet lag. So it was very confusing until I knew who got it and who gave it to me and when my exact symptoms started. And then it was a little bit that stressor was eliminated. But if you don't know when you had it and when your first symptom is another stress.
Right. Yeah. No, I didn't even think of that. That's a really good point. And so at what point did the worst thing happen, which was you losing your sense of smell and taste? How much were you thinking about that? You certainly knew about it because Ava lost her sense of smell and taste, which is the nail in the coffin that, you got COVID. But was that, I don't remember you bringing that up. I hope I don't lose.
Well, that I don't even understand why we don't make a bigger deal out of that. Yeah. I feel like losing taste and smell. This is what
you're here to talk about.
Losing taste and smell. It was like a side. It's kind of like just it's a side dish. I feel like it's probably right there next to dying. I mean, and we just talk about it like it's no big deal. Oh yeah, you're going to lose your taste and smell. You probably will. You might. And, but that's 40% of your sensing. That's like a pretty freaking huge deal. And totally my biggest fear about COVID. I mean, yes, I'm afraid, you're afraid of dying, but number 2 on the list is losing your taste and smell. And
well, let's be honest. You said it'd be worse. You'd prefer death. And when I said that to other people, because I was so worried about you and thought maybe you were in a special category of people who would prefer death. And I know this is to some extent cynical, but I said to a few other people, and 2 of the 3 people, like, yes, sounds about right. I too would not want to go on living. And I was like, wow, okay, she's not being really overdramatic. And there is a spectrum of people who how they feel about this, but clearly you, and certainly I'm sure a lot of people listening. So go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted to say it.
It's devastating. It's absolutely devastating. And I thought I escaped it. I was, that's me. I'm not gonna get it. The worst is over. I had 48 hours, Saturday, Sunday. Monday, woke up feeling a lot better. No fever. I was just little, tired. This congestion is still lingering to this day, but congested. I'm like, I'm good. I'm one of those lucky ones. No taste or smell. I still have it. And then dinner with my curry. And I was, wait, I can't smell my curry. I can't taste my curry. And then it happened. And then I was, yep. And then it happened. And then I tackled it like I tackle every damn challenge in my life, is I just hoard as much information as possible. And I went on the attack, and I just,
to learn how to solve it.
Well,
to beat it, to fight it.
I need to learn everything there is to know. And it gives you this false sense of certainty, feeling like you have some control. If you know what to expect, I guess. Even though at the same time, it scares the living shit out of you, because there's this whole nother world that I had no idea about. So I, get on every Facebook group. I read every article.
There are Facebook groups for people who have
tons of Facebook. So get on all these Facebook groups, and then read every single research article, read every freaking blog post, everything possible. And I just arm myself with tons of information, and at the same time give myself like some major panics, because I realize that this is bigger than I even ever imagined. And like, you just think, oh, you're going to lose your taste and smell for a couple of days, then it'll come back, or maybe a couple months at the most. But there are some horror stories out there, that just is devastating. And I have this newfound compassion and empathy for these people that it's so, I started tasting again. I went zero, no smell, no taste, for 4 days. And I felt like I was living in a movie, in like I wasn't in real life. It is so, it's, you lose your footing. It's so disorienting when you cannot smell your world. People just do not understand that. It's like, imagine watching a cooking show. You're sitting there and you're watching a cooking show, and they're cooking. You could see it. You can hear it. You can't smell it. So it's not real. Like, that's how I felt like I was living life. I couldn't smell anything. Like showering. You can't smell clean. You can't smell dirty. You can't smell, I did laundry. You had no idea. Walked outside. There was a fire. I see it. I can't smell it. It was, I had panic attacks because I couldn't, it's so hard to explain, but you don't feel like you're alive almost. It's like one of those things that you so take for granted. You don't take for granted your sight or your hearing, but your taste and smell. is just something you just don't think about not having. And I don't think you realize the foothold it has in your life until you lose it. I mean, just it's everywhere. Just your daily life is surrounded by scents. Triggers memories, it triggers feelings, it triggers, just in the morning, smelling my coffee, just starting the day. I was like, I am being stripped of those like simple pleasures that I have throughout my day to sustain me. Like, honestly, it gives you like a boost. The taste of my dark chocolate after a meal is just like, it just gives you that adrenaline ruch.
Dopamine or happiness, a feeling of pleasure.
Yes. It just, it affected me so quickly and so fast. It's like someone just pulled the rug right on from under me. I couldn't even believe it.
The reason why I really wanted to talk with you about this is because I'd never seen you quite be so affected in this way by a thing, and and I've been terrified about it. So you mentioned the panic attacks. Would you mind, because you described them to me, and they were like nothing I've ever heard, and probably like nothing you'd experienced, right? You had panic attacks before, similar or not at all?
I wouldn't. I'm not going to take away from real panic attacks. I wasn't like hyperventilating, but my heart would start beating and I'd start hitting the sweating palms, and I'd have to take some deep breaths to calm myself. But it's essentially what happens is, what would happen to me is I realize I can't smell the world, and it's like this like you want to scream. You have like this rage. It's like this, nothing is real. I can't smell anything. It's just this weird feeling inside of you. And then there's this, the immediate thought is what if I have to live like this for the rest of my life?
Right.
And then the thought of like, I can't, meals are what bring me happiness. Those, the simple things, and meals are one of them. I love cooking. I love sharing meals, and I love being around the table and enjoying meals. So that idea, and the idea of it being gone for an extended period of time and not knowing when it's going to come back was just, it was traumatizing. It was so I think I'm scarred for.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. Like, how worried are you that there's the kind of permanent damage? Because I think this is another horrible side effect of COVID. I mean, anybody who has a traumatic experience, the violence of some sort, an accident, whatever it is, everybody has had them. But this is, for you and many others, very indelible. So how, that was going to be really my final kind of question, is like, looking forward, what do you think this experience, the detriment is?
Well,
and maybe
I
it's
think,
silver lining in terms of you appreciate things even more.
Well,
smells,
yeah, that's for sure the takeaway. The
positive takeaway.
When I woke up Friday morning.
Oh yeah, let's talk about when you got
and
back.
That was when I went on a rabbit hole the night before on Facebook. And there's this thing, by the way, which I never heard of, and it's worth mentioning because it's a pretty damn big deal. People who have gone months, and some of these people have, I've read, up to over a year without any taste or smell. They're battling depression, anxiety. They're on like meds. This is like seriously affecting,
and to be clear,
mental
it's more
health.
Rare, like 90%.
Yes.
This is what I cling to the whole time. 90% of people get it back in a couple of weeks, but that doesn't stop you or anybody else from thinking you're going to be in the 10% of something.
Right. And then that's a lot of people. That 10% is still a lot of people. They're all over Facebook, and they have a lot of stories. And so there's this thing called Periperothemia or something. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but basically, it's a distorted sense of smell. So you get your smell back and it's all fucked up. It's like crazy. You're smelling sewage for coffee. People, and their taste is like way off, and they can't eat everything because everything tastes like garbage. It's apparently way worse than not having your taste and smell. And so there's a whole set of people that,
Jesus Christ.
Yes, that are going through this phase of they can't, they can't eat. It's like they gag every time they eat because everything smells terrible. And so you'll go on this page and they're commiserating about what they don't find nauseating to eat. Like some people only have a few foods that they could actually eat and not throw up because it stinks. So there's this is a stage, and sometimes they only smell burning. That's all they could smell when they start smelling again.
This is a very small group of people.
It's probably a very small,
but that is a horror show, and I almost wish you didn't share it, and I wish I didn't know it.
So, well, I think it's incentive to get vaccinated, wouldn't you? I mean, I think maybe we should talk about this more so people can be like, look, I don't believe in the vaccine. I think it could kill me, but I'd rather die than have this thing where everything smells like garbage and I don't want to eat. So I'm going to risk my stupid conspiracy theory belief, and I'm going to take a damn vaccine so that I can smell.
The thing about this,
so let's talk about that more. I think let's do some scare tactics, because that's a pretty serious scare tactic.
Well, there's no evidence of long-term effects with any kind of vaccine. It's just not how they work. But that's why you're here today, to talk about the long-term effects of COVID.
This is a long COVID. This is called long haul COVID.
Right.
This is one of the major symptoms of long haul COVID. So I was down this rabbit hole Thursday night reading about this thing.
That's fun.
And I'm like, oh, so that's great. So not only can I go months, maybe even a year without smelling, but when I get it back, I'm going to, vomit every day because all I smell is sewage. So
I did not.
Yeah.
I did not know that, and I'm sorry I didn't know it. I appreciate you saying it.
So I think we should speak into the microphone about this more often and incentivize people. So I wake up Friday morning and I said, okay, I can't let this thing take over. I have to be bigger than this, and I'm going to just use my imagination. I was also afraid that I wouldn't be able to imagine what things smelled like anymore, because it's day 3 and I'm like, what does a banana smell like? I don't know. Can I imagine the smell of a banana? And I was losing it. But so I took my coffee that morning and I closed my eyes and I'm like, I'm going to just pretend like I'm smelling this coffee. And I actually smelt it. And I was, but very faintly, like very faintly. Now you have to understand, I'm sticking Vicks up my nose. I'm sticking everything. Like I'm literally bearing a candle, my face in a candle, can't smell anything. So
at one point you ate an onion. You made a video.
Ate an onion. Could not, I mean, I'm sniffing an onion. No effect whatsoever. Like it is zero, nothing. So when I smelt this coffee and had a faint of something, there was like this, whoa, did I just do that with my brain, or did I really just smell? So I went on, crazy smelling everything in the house, and I'm realizing that I'm faintly smelling things. And my daughter gives me this candle, smell this. And it was like one of those really, really strong candles, and put it in my face and I smelt it, and I literally fell on my knees and just started sobbing. And so and now I'm at the point where I'm smelling.
Can I throw the audio at least of that in? That Julia happened to be video. She saw what was happening.
She videotaped me.
Can I at least throw the audio?
Totally can throw the audio.
Oh,
yes,
because it was really wonderful to.
Yeah, it was so moving.
Julia started screaming, "Mom can smell," and she's crying.
I'm bawling. It's so unbelievably emotional at that point.
Behind your back, I have been joking that we didn't even think she had tear ducts. The point being, the perspective on seeing.
I don't cry. Very rarely do I cry. Yeah. So that was a pretty big deal. And I'm an Italian. It's worth mentioning. Like, this is everything to me. So I fall on my knees, start crying, and then realize, as the day progresses, it's not just black or white. You don't just not have smell and then have smell. It's like a process. So some things I could smell stronger. It has to be up to my nose at this point. I can't just smell things airborne. It has to be a pretty strong smell during the day. Like there are times when it fades and it comes back. I have to be really mindful of when I'm eating something to be able to taste it. So it's not fully back yet. And I'm reading all these things of all, obviously I'm still reading stuff. And, apparently that's the cycle. It goes through this cycle of coming back. It doesn't just come back. I don't know. This is I think, going to be now a new conversation I have with everybody who has had COVID. I'm going to in detail ask them every single question about their taste and their smell and how it affected them. I'm sure that some people have, less of an impact than others, but it really, I'm hoping that I have it back soon fully. But I'm just grateful that I got something back, which is really hopeful for me, which gives me something to cling to.
Today was our screen cleanse. Explain what that is that we do. We try to do every month.
Yeah, there's no screens for the girls, whatever. No TV, no iPad, no phone, no screens, screen free.
And
we went apple picking, which was appropriate because couldn't smell any of the apples in the air, but I was able to taste them.
So we chose to go apple picking, and today was kind of at least in my opinion, your coming out day in terms of seeing you express a lot of joy and happiness for the first time since you went into this.
Well,
and so
other than my joyful crying episode on Friday.
Well, yeah, right. But I mean, like where it was sustained, where you really, I mean, it was great that the girls had no phones. They were so engaged, number one, but more importantly, we were all just kind of together experiencing the smell of autumn and apples. And even though you couldn't experience it fully, you were just, I'm saying you were joyous today in a way that you've been joyless for a while since this started because of everything that you went through. And you're clearly you're not alone.
Right.
And that's why I wanted to talk with you about it. So thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just underrated, the effects that,
the long-term effects, because even if you get your sense of smell and even if you're 100% better after COVID, what happened to you, when you can speak to this in a lot of different ways, is hopefully it's not there. Hopefully it's not permanent, the trauma of it. But I mean, this is what happens to people with this illness or with other illnesses. So hopefully you won't.
And how just impactful that it is. I think that you take these little things for granted. I mean, everyday miracles, honestly. I think about this now in a whole different way. Just eating a meal is a whole nother experience than it was a week ago. It's.
There's one more thing I just thought of, which is the least important detail, but I think you would be good to speak on it, which is you're self-employed. And it's just more proof of, the way our economy works when you're like, you didn't work for a week, which I always try to comfort you and it's okay, but you hate missing work, canceling
so stressful
work. And so it's just the idea that there wasn't money coming in for you or that you weren't.
Well, that's always been one of the reasons I don't want to get it, because you don't know how long you're going to get, be out of work for. But that's a reality that everybody faces, and not everybody, but, people in my situation for sure. And that's another reason why you don't want to not work when you're not feeling well. It's like, if I am sick, I'm not going to not go to work if I have a little sore throat, I can't afford that. So you just keep working, but it's one of those, one of the issues with
and again,
this.
when you and your client got it, neither one of you had any symptoms, and that's how it spreads, and that's why it's so dangerous.
Well, you didn't have symptoms for a couple of days. That's how she gave it to me. And that's how, for the first, they say 48 hours, you could be symptom free and spreading it.
Well, if anybody has any questions, I'll be posting this. And of course, I'm sure there's going to be follow-ups, and, maybe you'll post it on your Facebook and people can reach out to you, thanking you or giving you any advice or whatever. So I thank you very much. It's so great to see you, I'm beyond happy that you're back on the mend. And it was traumatizing for us too, to watch you go through it. And so,
and nobody, I spread it to nobody that I know of. So that was a success. Nobody in the family got it, and none of my clients got it that I know of. I mean, I know for sure none of my clients got it that I saw.
For me, I mean, we don't share a bedroom, haven't for years. So if people get it, partners get it when they're sleeping, I don't know. But more importantly, I left the state. I went to Florida where COVID's rampant while you could have potentially spread it to me.
Yeah.
And that was just luck. That's, when the
girls are vaccinated and they're pretty freshly vaccinated.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So I wasn't really that, around them that often. So, but yeah, so that's a big success for me. I didn't spread it.
Yeah.
And, and then now I'm filled with antibodies.
How does that feel?
That feels good.
Yeah.
But not to say that if there was a booster and I should get it, I'm going to get it anyway, because I don't ever want to deal with this ever again.
Thank you.
Okay, there you go. There goes Val. How about it? What do you think? She would love to hear from you. You can email her at vvyoga1@gmail.com. You could sign up to take her virtual classes. She has a great group of listeners, subscribers who join her pretty regularly. You could also say hi to her, friend her on Facebook. She'd like that too. Valerie Vendrame, Vendrame. And on Friday, like we said, is when in the morning, I was still asleep, and all of a sudden I hear, Julia, I hear this. This is what I hear. This is audio of Julia walking in. And just at the moment when Val had realized that she was getting her sense of smell back, here it is. You hear Julia both kind of laughing and crying, and Val so emotional. You never, ever see this woman like this. This is how big of a deal it was. So there you go. We have a lot to be grateful for and celebrate it. And you better believe we did this weekend. So grateful that she is getting that back and that we made it through this. So many of you have had to go through it as well. And I would love to hear your stories and tell your stories about this or anything else. So definitely reach out to me if you got a story to tell, like so many of you have. standupwithpete@gmail.com. All right. Well, every Monday I reach out to the brilliant, hilarious, and super honest and always interesting Maura Quint. She's so good on Twitter at Behind Your Back. She's an activist and a writer, and she's now working on the campaign to raise taxes on wealthy at Americans for Tax Reform at americansfortaxfairness.org. And she also co-wrote and helped produce this hilarious ad that illustrates it all and stars comedian, actor, writer David Cross. I'm going to play this for you, and then I'll share my interview with the woman who co-wrote it.
I'm sorry. They want to get millions of uninsured people health care with my money. If I have to pay taxes on billions worth of stock gains, what does that do to the money left over for a spaceship?
Breaking news. Leaked webcam footage of billionaire playboy Grayson Von Trapp revealing his astronomical tax avoidance while condescending the working poor. And now, excerpts from the leaked video.
Hey, Cap, it's Grayson. I'm back from Dubai. I want to check in on my money. It's been 2 days now. How much has my stock in Amazon and Facebook gone up since COVID? 10 billion. Huh. Just 10, huh? All right, so what does that mean? I'm sitting at roughly 110 billion now? All right, let me cut to the chase. I want to go to space. Outer space, that's right. I want big spaceship energy, real long, but with girth, you know? How much do you think that'll cost? 10 billion? But that's all my COVID cash. How am I going to... No, I don't want to liquidate the stock. Then I'd have to pay taxes on that. I know, right? Oh, it's hilarious. Well, what if I just borrow against my profits? Powell at the Fed has things pretty set up for me. Real easy to get a cheap loan. Okay, great. Blast that off. Next topic, income taxes. How much were they last year? 0. Again, perfect. Great. No, I know. My sister is working 2 jobs as a teacher and an EMT. All she does is pay income tax and rent. No, I don't want to give her anything. A handout will just make her lazy, okay? She really needs to pull herself up from her bootstraps. But I got to ask, so why 0 income tax? I had no salary and was only paid in stock. Okay, got it. So as long as I don't sell for years, I pay nothing. That can't be real. Okay, great. So because I had 0 income, I qualified for a child tax credit? Wait a second, man. Do I have a kid? No, they didn't belong to me. They were just on the yacht. Yeah, don't worry about that. Well, that's crazy because my sister didn't even qualify for that. Ugh, I love means testing. Hey, send Joe Manchin another bottle of champagne for his yacht. What? The Biden White House wants to... What the hell is a billionaire's tax? I'd pay taxes on all my stock gains every year? No. That's what my sister does with her income. That's communism. It's not communism. It's, fascism? I'm positive it's an ism. So can Cinema block it? Okay, great. Send her 5 checks. One for the corporate PAC, one for me, blah, blah, blah. And tell the Chamber of Commerce we're in for some ads. Because the whole point of being rich is not paying taxes. I mean, who's pushing this in Congress? Wyden, Oregon. Just a whole bunch of do-gooders. What are they even planning to do with my money? Give poor people guacamole or something? Childcare and universal pre-K. Paid family leave? Well, I already have that. Medicare covering dental, vision, and hearing. You must be joking. I mean, does anybody even use Medicare? They should manufacture universal bootstrap. In fact, Peggy, let's invest or find somebody to invent. Yeah, universal bootstraps, good. There's more. Fighting climate change. I'm sorry, why do they think we're building spaceships? All right, well, you know the deal. Just buy a couple senators, I think we only need 2, and then put out a shit ton of misinformation. Last question. If I have to pay taxes on billions worth of stock gains, what does that do to the money left over for a spaceship? So I'd have roughly $81,769,242,682. Well, let's do 2 spaceships then.
Tax billionaires, hashtag Build Back Better. Billionairestax.org. And now time to talk to the woman who co-wrote that hilarious bit, which goes a long way to educating all of us. At Behind Your Back, it's time for Maura Mondays with Maura Quint. Hit me one more time, Pico.
When sunrise gives you a side ache, it's Maura Mondays.
Okay, now we have her. Maura joins me now. And that was a pretty cool thing that you made that ad, that you wrote that ad. Congrats.
Thank you. It was really fun and random and way better than the other stuff I was having to do on tax policy for the week. So it was a good side bit.
It's really smart for an organization like yours to be doing this kind of media. And certainly they're lucky to have a great comedy writer to do this kind of thing. But, it's been seen by over almost 500,000 people. And my question is, how do you measure, what is the effort? I feel like things like that make a real difference and create an awareness because you include both the senator, the politics and the policy itself. And I think it's really effective. But what's the goal there?
The goal is it's education mostly with something like that. You just kind of want to spread awareness that this is a policy that's out there because who's following tax revenue policies? That's not something people are in the weeds about. Who cares? So just sort of making people know that exists, that it's on the table, that we're pushing for it matters because, a lot of these people that see it or that speak to others about it, they end up lobbying. I mean, that's how these things get around. It's grassroots awareness.
Yeah, and it's really well done. It's so well done. I loved it. I laughed a lot and listened to it 5 times. And how do you get David Cross to do that?
That is just, David Cross is just awesome. I mean, he's awesome. No, he actually came to Adam Green, who co-wrote this with me and co-did it with me. Adam Green's the head of the PCCC, and told him, hey, I'm interested in tax the rich stuff. So, if you ever want to do something, let me know. And Adam was like, Laura, come on, we've got David Cross. We got to do something. It was within, a 5-10 minute turnaround.
That's awesome. It's always awesome when people who stand to be, quote, penalized or to, quote, lose from a policy advocate. I have no idea how much money David Cross has, but I'm guessing as much as he wants, to be honest. He's just a talented, super respected person in entertainment. And he can work as much or as little as he wants, as can his wife, meaning Amber Tamblyn, meaning they probably have good money, meaning they stand to be punished, quote, punished, lose something. But their truth is what a lot of wealthy people know is it makes no difference to them. it makes hardly any difference to their bottom line paying these taxes.
I don't know if it makes a difference to them.
I say it does not.
There's certainly wealthy people for whom it would make, or like, people who are considered wealthy for whom it would make a difference. They would have lifestyle changes, or they'd have to sort of think through how they're going to reorganize their life a little bit. But that doesn't mean that they can't still advocate for it or recognize what's good or right. I mean, there are plenty of policies that that I think are really important that don't necessarily benefit me, but it's still important for the world. And I'm always thrilled when people recognize the greater good and go out of their way to to make an effort to push for things, regardless of whether or not they're going to be personally benefit from them.
Yeah. I always get so frustrated when people, they go at, like, on the right, you've got all these billionaires funding policies and campaigns for the things they want, taxes or incentives or whatever they want. And then on the left, you have billionaires funding policies as well. And people always point to George Soros. And it's like, Soros is supporting campaigns that would affect his own bottom line. I feel like that's the difference. Yes, they're billionaires, but they're advocating for policies that would make less billionaires, or at least bring their wealth down. Is it ever worth even making that point?
Well, I mean, I caution to draw a line and be like, well, the ones on the rich on the left are willing to go against their own best interests, because that's just not necessarily true at all. I think it's rare for any person to necessarily go against their bottom line best interest. But you do have a couple of them on the left. There are plenty of Democratic rich people who also lobby for lower taxes. It's not just a side thing. I mean, not just a one side or the other.
Right. Fair enough. Also, this week, you guys put out a statement. Big week for you. Very busy. Yeah. Americans for Tax Fairness.
I've been telling you, I have no time, Pete. This is all I'm doing. Just nonstop.
You know what? You were telling me how busy you've been, and like you haven't come up for air. It's like, if you're not, obviously working, you've got kids and a life. But whenever people say that, you're like, I mean, I believe you. Certainly, I believe you. But in this case, like you're showing your work. Like there's like, you got the video, which is a huge deal. And then you've got 100 organizations sending a letter to Congress supporting a billionaires income tax. Hashtag billionaires income tax. Ron Wyden, the great senator from Oregon, supporting this in the United States Senate, because the way most billionaires make their money, many could remain virtually untouched by hashtag Build Back Better tax reform unless it includes the billionaires tax. First, just tell me, what is this letter, and how does this advocacy work as well?
So the billionaires income tax is a piece of legislation that, as you said, Oregonian Ron Wyden has put forward. He's pretty good on all of these types of issues. And what this tax does is it would tax billionaires' profits, but a very specific kind. They're tradable asset profits. All of these are like a bunch of, I'm sure most people listening, because they're all very smart, your listeners, understand what all of that means. But if I had been one of your listeners, I would not have until recently. But primarily, billionaires don't make money through a paycheck. Jeff Bezos got like $60,000, $80,000, and that was like something he would brag about, and that's what he would pay taxes on, like he was a nurse in a reasonably sized city. Instead, billionaires are making their taxes on all of their investments. They have a tremendous amount of stocks and bonds, and those appreciate. They only have to pay taxes on those stocks if they sell them, but they don't have to sell them because they can get very, very low interest loans based on those investments, and then live off the loans and never have to pay taxes at all.
I just learned this maybe last year, but that Bezos and others, their spending cash is they're a loan. It's really very difficult to wrap your head around that they borrow money. But that's the whole scheme. That's the whole. That's
and
the game.
That way they completely dodge all of the tax loopholes, and they don't have to pay a dime. And so this would look at how much they have in tradable assets that was unsold and how much that appreciated, and it would tax that increase as though it were income. So if they had $1 million let's say they have a billion in tradable assets and it goes up to 3 billion. That year, they have to pay taxes on the 2 billion that they would have amassed, regardless of whether they sold it or not. And in fact, as long as they didn't sell it. If they sell it, they pay the taxes at the normal.
And again, just to be
rate.
clear, the nurse that used, her job is very hard because she's a nurse and it's COVID maybe, and she worked a lot of hours and she's on her feet and she makes money with her labor. And then she get taxed at a much higher rate than what you just said, the money they are accruing, meaning they go to bed at night, and they lie down on their in their bed, and they put a pillow between their knees because probably, that's what I do. If it's a billionaire, they probably have a child.
Between their knees?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then while they're sleeping, their money is making money. The nurse is working her ass off, his ass off. That was sexist. And he, the billionaire, he's just going to bed and amassing that money. And then they're still complaining about the tax rate they have to pay. They didn't work for it.
During a pandemic when everyone was struggling, U.S. billionaires got $2.1 trillion richer, and they did it by going to sleep every night and waking up to more money. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So this is, I think, a really interesting revenue-raising proposal. I'm pretty excited about it because it changes fundamentally who we're taxing and how we're taxing them, which is structurally what needs to happen. Our tax code is broken in many ways, and that is one of them. And this looks like a possibility that it might actually get included into the Build Back Better plan, primarily because cinema is just axing so many other possibilities. She's just refusing to budge on changing the corporate rate and various other proposals, but potentially, knock on all of the wood, any wood that you have, if there's some in your pants, knock on it. Just knock on all the wood. Cinema might be okay with this for some reason. Obviously, she is vast and unknowable and could change in a heartbeat. But at the moment, it seems possible.
This is awesome. And by the way, while I don't have an erection, I do have a 2x4 in my pants.
No, that's what I meant. What did you, an erection? What? I would never speak of such things, Pete. My goodness. I'm not that kind of girl.
Erection.
I don't know.
Is that an erection? Well, this is a huge, potentially on the cusp of a major triumph. And it would be a big, big deal. Americans for
Being
tax.
able to talk about dick jokes while talking tax policy is the biggest triumph I could have hoped for.
One of the reasons why people love that you come on this program. There's, I mean, who else is making that joke? Not Ron Wyden, not Paul Krugman. Americans.
Krugman's got some weird shit going on.
He may.
Yeah, I don't trust that guy. I don't want to know what jokes.
I want to hear Paul Krugman say erection. He probably has misspoke like everybody else did when they meant to say election.
Does everyone do that? Everyone says erection.
Oh yeah, Obama, Osama, election, erection. I'm trying to think of another one that you hear a lot for sure. They, instead of saying the word country, they stutter and just say cunt. That's happened to me, like on CNN.
Purposefully, though, I would imagine.
Yeah, I actually just said it like 5 times in a row to John King. So Americans for Tax Fairness.org, go favorite that, donate to these campaigns that Maura works on. But also, I mean, this is possibly going to become policy, and that would be a major, major deal. Are you hearing anything else? I saw Nancy Pelosi was on today saying, you know, the bill is looking better, at least in the House. Anything else that you're hearing, insider or outsider, that makes you, you know, optimistic or not about this Build Back Better passing anytime soon?
I think it's very possible that we're going to be looking at a vote, or at least an announcement towards a vote this week, which is, look, I think maybe last week, probably on this show, I said that wasn't going to happen until December. So, you know, I'm eating my words in real time here. That's what it's looking like. It is, from a progressive perspective, going to be very disappointing because it is going to be a much smaller number than what we had wanted, than what Biden put forth. And that means there's going to be a lot of cuts. It's very frustrating. You know, having spent so much time lobbying in various ways and having all these conversations with organizations and working on various issue areas, it's so easy to just get really dejected and depressed. And I think a lot of people in this space have been feeling really just worn out and low and like kind of hopeless about it all. But I am kind of trying, maybe just because it's like, it's a new week. I don't know. It's Halloween. Let's look on the bright side of Halloween. Is that what, I don't know.
Fine.
Candy, sugar, rushes. But, you know, it still is a historic investment in working people. There's still a lot of possibility for tremendous change. And additionally, the more that they can get through right now, the better the chances of the elections are, as long as they can sell the wins. And the more, you know, I mean, I think we all also end up feeling a bit dejected about elections in general because it's not moving fast enough, but we have gotten so far on so many issues in such a short time. I actually still have a tremendous amount of driving hope that there is a lot more we can do. And what we need to do at every step is just celebrate the wins and really, really push hard on the wins and not get too bogged down in feeling hopeless about the things that didn't happen. We have to push for those while we can, but once it's done, we got to look to what has actually occurred and think about how we can get more of that rather than kind of like losing too much time lamenting over what didn't work,
I think
which is frustrating.
I think you make a lot of really good points. We live in such a moment to moment, up and down, happy, sad, social media world and real life world that we don't realize how much really can change in a week, much less a year, even by the midterms. If the supply chain issue is settled down and something about capitalism tells me they're going to figure out how to sell us more fucking bullshit that we don't need. I bought a snowblower this week because I was afraid there wouldn't be any. And I've been thinking about this for 12 years. And then, of course,
what have you been doing for 12 years? Just
shoveling,
living under like
busting my ass, literally. And like my whole family just literally looks out the window with hot chocolate and points at me. Look at his back. It probably hurts. But if that issue is settled, if gas comes down a little bit, if COVID is like, a lot can change in a year. And I'm saying a year because of the midterms. And in 3 years, so much more can change. So everybody's like fretting about a lot of things, and rightfully so. I'm not saying they should, but I think just trying to put a little color to what you're talking about in general about how things can really change. So let me, though, ask you just what your thoughts are on how this bill or this issue has been sold or not. I mean, the question being, have Democrats done a good enough job? I mean, this is very subjective, but, promoting taxing the rich. It's super popular. Have Democrats not talked about it enough? Organizations like yours and you are doing great work, but they're outside organizations. So what would you like to see differently about this issue or any others in terms of the way Dems talk about it or it's sold?
Well, I mean, I think that's really tricky. I think it's only very, very recently that Democratic politicians have come around on speaking about it at all. However, it's moved very quickly. I think you have a lot of people who are elected who speak on this issue at this moment in time, which, I don't want to take that for granted. Like that right. wasn't happening 6 years ago. It's happening now. So that is good to see. I think it's very tricky because, the Dems are in power right now, right? Like they could do anything except that they can't because you have a cinema and you have a mansion and you have House moderates. You have these people who are just terrible. Why is that making you laugh?
Because I don't think I've heard it phrased that way. And since we've been talking about these two, you just named two legitimate buildings in a town. They've got a cinema and a mansion. Those are actual things. And that's how my ear heard it. That's why I'm laughing.
Yeah, I've never noted that either. You're right. Well, anyway, we need to burn those buildings.
And people who live in mansions go to the cinema. They don't go to the movies. We're going to the cinema. We live in a mansion. Anyway.
Exactly. They live in the elitist part of town that, should be rioted, basically. They have their own private police force. It's a whole problem. But they are completely standing in the way. And because of that, it's very hard to sort of say, well, Democrats have done this or Democrats want this, because here are some Democrats who are shutting it down. It's not even that they don't want it. They're going to act as completely
that's a great
to the
point.
whole problem.
The vast majority of Democrats in the House and the Senate, and certainly those at the state level and local level even, have been promoting these policies. It's literally a very small minority, and yet a lot in media, political media, still both sides it. Oh, the Democrats and Biden. I mean, maybe Biden could do more. I don't know, but
well, who knows? It's so hard to say because who knows what Biden's doing, right? Like it feels like he's not doing enough. I mean, that's my gut feeling, but I have no idea. I don't know what he's up at night doing. I don't know who he talks to.
I can't stop thinking about how Barack Obama went out and tried to sell things that he knew had a chance and won, and things that he probably didn't, but were popular to talk about, from healthcare to I think it was called the American Jobs Act, to the Disclose Act, to immigration. He would go out and he would pound. And just the difference is that dude could give just such a great speech. And I think Biden can't do that.
I don't know. We have maybe some different views on Obama. I don't have a tremendous fondness for his legacy, in fact, and I think he could have done a lot more. And I think he did not do enough. But I'm harsh.
Are you going to disparage Bruce Springsteen while you're at it?
I mean, I'm just saying a lot of things have come out of New Jersey, and I just don't know why we have to. No, Bruce Springsteen sounds great.
All right. Well, people should know that while Maura is saying that, she's also burning an American flag, which I think is a little bit on the nose. But
I'm cold. I told you already.
What is with you? What are you? When you popped on the video link, you were as if you just came in from some very cold weather, and you had a scarf and a jacket on. And what's going on in your home? Is it not? Do you have heat?
I mean, I have, but we're just in that transition place where I haven't cranked to heat yet because I'm not ready for those bills. And I was outside all day. I'm a good soccer mom. I was soccer mom in hardcore today. I was outside in the cold cheering for kids.
Oh, that's great. That's fun. Do you like to?
You're going to mock me for that, Pete? Huh?
No, I'm going to ask you a question that I know the answer to. Okay. How are you with the other parents? Do you sit around and chit chat and make friends with the other moms and dads and stuff?
I spend these soccer games walking in circles basically around the soccer field because I don't speak to, I'm not being mean. I'll say hello or, I try to have these sort of little conversations, but I just don't feel like I never really connect with the other parents for whatever reason.
I had the same, it's not you. I had the exact same experience when my kids were your kids' age and I was at sports and I was often the coach. They knew who I was and I still didn't want to talk to them, but it just also pains me too. It's these people don't know that they're missing out on talk. I pay to talk to her every week. I can't wait to talk to this. If I saw you walking around somewhere, I'd be like, oh my God, hey, let's talk. I love to talk to you. You're so much fun to talk to. And yet you're there and these people are missing out.
Hey, I even go up to them sometimes and try and start conversation. And it's always kind of oh, nice to see you too. They all know each other. They hang out. I'm I'm not a cool mom. I'm not part of the group.
I think, though, we've talked about this. The truth is, it's the subject matter that is hardest. It's not really that it's I just don't know if I want to get into much of a conversation, and I can't really fake it talking about many of the things that you're talking about. I mean, you and I hit it off so well because we love the things that we talk about every week. We actually like talking about them, but at those events with those parents, I don't know. I've always wondered how they all get along so well. What are they talking about?
No, I completely agree. And that's the thing that always kind of confuses me because they seem to really be enjoying their conversations.
Yes.
They're really into it. So it's not like they're standing around feeling a little bit or seeming, maybe they are. I don't know what's going on inside their hearts and minds, but they don't seem like they're standing around kind of bored or out of it and waiting for someone to start an interesting, engaging conversation. It seems no, they really, really want to talk about which of the grocery delivery services is better.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's what I'm wondering, because I know what men tend to talk about, which is the pretty typical stuff at an event like that. It's a lot of sports stuff. I remember I would start following sports a little bit just to be ready. And I was like, why? What am I going to, I just, that worked for a week. But I love to talk about kids and parenting, and men generally don't at those. But I feel women do talk more about kids and parenting, maybe not something too serious, but you just mentioned making lunches or teachers or something. But what else do the women talk to? And as I continue to generalize and be sexist,
I was going to say it's a mixed gender deal. I try and listen in because I'm the lurker. there are plenty of times where I'm sort of standing like a couple feet away trying to like hear something that I can relate to like join in, like make, be friendly. And I just struggle. I tend to have no idea what they're talking about. They seem to talk about other people that I don't know. They do talk about their kids sometimes and like how much their kids still like train or stuff, which my kid doesn't care about.
For sports?
Yeah. For like, if they're practicing or like, oh, well, he's been running a lot. Like I have to like force my kid to go to soccer practice, even though he loves it. Like he's not interested in running drills on the side, or like, I don't know what else they talk about. Or they talk about other things that are happening sort of in the town or the school, right? So like maybe somebody has another kid in marching band. So they're discussing what the marching band schedule is, or like, just stuff where I'm like, I have nothing. I can't contribute.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. I punched out of it so long ago. But
there was one conversation. I made one parent friend my kids are 10 and 8 years old. So it's been some years. And it was because she like slightly overheard me say something about sex, I think. And she kind of giggled. And like, I was like, ooh, and in. I just sort of started talking to her about sex. And she was like, into talking about it. I'm like, oh, okay, we have a discussion here. There's something to talk about.
Any subject that has some depth to it is I don't care what it is, sex or psychology or anything like this, but it just, I don't know.
I even tried, I will tell you, sorry to cut you off, but like I was at this soccer tournament a little bit ago, and I had taken a couple of the kids there. And someone told me, oh, when you're texting out photos, so I was texting photos of the kids that I had brought, send it to one of the kids' dads whose name is Chris. So they gave me the phone number and I put that number in my phone. And then I sent this group text with some photos and like a thank you, because someone had sent cinnamon rolls. So it was like, oh, the kids really love the cinnamon rolls. Here's some photos of the tournament to like a couple of people. And I get back this text from a Chris saying, really happy to hear the kids are doing well. If there are any more cinnamon rolls, would love to have one. If you're anywhere near DC, I don't know who this is. But probably this wasn't meant for me. And I realized that I had accidentally texted a guy I went on one date with like 2.5 years ago. And I'm sorry, it wasn't cinnamon rolls. It was sticky buns. And so in that mortification, I like shared with the other parents that this was happening. And like, even that, like I got no response.
Really? No way.
None.
No
Plus,
way.
I had texted this dude about sticky buns. Like
that's a whole nother litmus test when you try to tell a funny story, legitimately funny story, and you get nothing. You then learn these people also don't appreciate my humor. Or not only do they not appreciate my humor, they don't appreciate humor being injected. I get that. You don't want a funny story. You don't want it. Right. You don't like it. You'd rather whatever. And I completely punch out with people like that because I want them to tell funny stories if they can. A lot of them, you don't want them to because, wow, we're going to be here a while apparently to this story. It's when my kids were your kids' age now. I mean, I was the exact same way. And it's just, it is what it is. I just would be worried now. I guess I haven't been. My girls are so much older. Like I don't. Yeah, I guess Julia's volleyball game or something like this. But like I feel like every conversation would be about COVID related protocols or something COVID related. And I don't know if there could be a potential for a lot of arguments these days, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think anyone like discusses these because I think everybody knows that there's differing views. So
yeah, people just avoid stuff.
It's not. Yeah.
All right. Final thing I want to talk to you about is you were telling me before we started that the last few days you've basically just felt kind of blah and not good about yourself. And I really wanted to ask you about that because the way that you're always so good at being honest and vulnerable and super obviously articulate about it. And it really did make me wonder when you said, like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And also it's kind of sometimes hard for me knowing you so well, thinking that you could be that way because I kind of look up to you thinking how smart and funny you are, and how can she be down on herself when she's so great? What's going on? Like, what is that conversation that you have with yourself? Can you explain it?
I mean, I sort of battle an internal negative self-talk all the time that is telling me that I'm not good enough in various ways. And they're pretty consistent. Like, I think most, I don't want to say most people have this. I think there are definitely people who skate through life just being like, look, I'm great. I don't know what needs to change. But like, I think a lot of people have this, and
sure.
they can.
That's why I'm asking you about it. Yes.
Yeah, they can certainly like be or focus in different sort of areas or topics. For me, I have a tremendous struggle with my like body image. It's hard for me not to feel like such a level of self-hatred of like I'm subjecting other people to something terrible by being in public. Wow. The fact that they had to see me has lowered the quality of their day. Like that is a pretty constant feeling that I have. And
because you're so introspective, what is that? What is the root of it, and why at this point in your life has that, by the way, come and gone, that feeling?
Yeah, I felt better about myself. I mean, I'm very unhappy with myself physically at the moment. But I've always struggled with myself. Like, it started as a kid. Certainly, I was never the like really skinny girl, basically. And so that just told me, like, I just completely internalized the idea that, well, either you're very thin or you're worthless. Like, not projecting outward. I don't see other people like that, but I see it when I look in the mirror.
I actually think that's true.
Yeah. I mean, it really gets in there. It's like a constant life battle to fight.
But does that come from culture and society, that thin is worth more than whatever else?
I mean, like, if you really want me to go down the rabbit hole too, there's a whole element, I think, of feeling. All right, I'll pause for a second and say, I'm actually pretty confident about my intellect. Like, that's never been I've always felt pretty smart. Like, oh, I have something to offer from a brain perspective. My words not so good, but brain work great. But I've always felt like, but I'm not thin enough or pretty enough. And that's how women are valuable, which is like the most misogynistic, sexist framework that a person can have. But it has absolutely been in my head all the time. And so anytime I feel very ugly, fat, unattractive, any of the words that to me code as bad, regardless of whether they are or not, but like internally to me, they code as bad. Anytime I feel that way, I feel I have a diminished power or ability in the world, because this thing that is valued, you have less of than other people. And so you're not worth as much. And I mean, I had a very supportive, loving family. Like, it wasn't coming, I didn't get that kind of nitpicking. I know some people aren't as fortunate and get that directly from their parents, that kind of messaging. For me, it was just societal, and then like via friends directly. I mean, in elementary school, that was what I learned, was that they were going to pick on, like, the popular girls were going to pick on girls who were not as pretty and skinny as they were, whatever that meant. It meant a particular look at that time. And it's never, like, it's very hard to shake. And I've spent it's infuriating as like a mature, intelligent person. The amount of mental space that takes up all the time is absolutely infuriating. It serves no purpose. It's so unhelpful, but it is a constant battle to get rid of. So that's like one area for me. It's not the only area, but I don't know. I don't want to take up the whole entirety of your show.
I want another area.
Another area that I've always struggled with is creative worth. Like, I've always felt that I was less than creatively. I was not talented enough, basically. I always felt that, like, in order to be a creative person, you had to be sort of like blessed with some genius, and it was just sort of bestowed upon you, and everyone knew, wow, that's a writer, or that's a comedian, or that's an artist, or an actress, or whatever.
Right.
And I always loved those worlds and I loved practicing them, but I always felt like, but I haven't been blessed with the genius. And so I don't deserve to do anything creative. And that has been another struggle of just sort of coming to terms with, that's not how it works. You can just do the creative stuff because you love it and it's okay. And, you know, some of it maybe will be good. Some of it maybe won't. Maybe people will connect with stuff. Maybe they won't, but it's okay. You're not being self-indulgent. You're not being, you know, a pompous asshole who should shut up. Like, it's all right to practice whatever your creative art is and to feel proud of it, which is like a really hard thing for me to do. And so I've also been struggling with that a little bit lately too. So those are just two areas.
Those are both really interesting areas to talk about. And I think that when you talk about them on the record here, it's always going to help you probably anytime you talk about them, I suppose. But I think it's really helpful for people to listen to you say them, because we see people however we see them. And when I look at you, when I think about just that last point about creativity, I always get like mad at your jokes, like because they're so funny. And when you write up like the debate raps, I'm like just blown away. It's so, and I just think for, you know, not that you need my vindication, but I think for you, it's like a matter of time and priorities. You've got kids and a job that is kicking your ass because it's in the peak campaign of trying to tax billionaires. So there's not a lot. And yet you still wrote this hilarious thing that David Cross, one of the greatest comics of our time, read and loved reading. And then you tweeted something that kind of captures everything that you're just saying. And I certainly can relate. Any comedian can relate to this, but I think most people can, which is, I just want a Halloween costume as unforgettable as a lone criticism in a sea of kind words.
Yeah, it's been like I've had a couple of comments plaguing me lately when they shouldn't stand out at all. There's running through my head every single moment of every single day right now is a woman that I've never met, who I only heard tangentially say to someone else, she's not even pretty. It's the stupidest, most childish thing. And this woman, I think, you know, probably hated me for other reasons, but I have that in my head constantly right now. It's so dumb.
Well, you do have a lot of gentleman callers. Like, men do like you, and I won a lot. I mean, like, I've told you off the air, I'll just say it on the record, like, there's a lot of guys that listen to you on the podcast and are like, she's awesome, and ask me questions that I won't answer about you. But I wonder if like a comment like that, I don't know why a woman would say that, but I think, you know, something, I wonder if people are jealous. And more importantly, I wonder, what does it take for any one of us to feel better about ourselves? What does change it? If I did have a bunch of women telling me I'm sexy and I still didn't think I was sexy, or this because the one I like didn't like me, or whatever it is, or there's only one in my whole life, like do comments change that? Do people pursuing you change that? What changes that dynamic when it changes, if it changes?
All of those things are momentary changes. It's like you feel good for a second. It's a little rush, but does it change how you feel about yourself? Absolutely not. And that's, I think, a thing that people struggle with, especially when they're younger, looking for that external validation to make them feel better about things that only they can fix themselves internally. That's hard. But it sucks a little bit too, because, you know, I'm definitely at the point where I go, oh shit, no one can make me feel good about myself except me. That's so much more work. Oh, I hate it. It's not fair.
It's great. It's such your honesty about the insecurities is what is hard for me, because I think when people are so honest about their insecurities, they come off as wildly confident. That's how you've always kind of come off to me externally. But what you're saying is like, it's just not how it is. It's not how it is for any of us, really. Everybody's so different. But I think I can relate, and I think a lot of people can relate to what you're saying. I mean, especially I can even relate to the body image stuff, because when I was little, I was the littlest boy. The littlest boy, Maura.
Yeah, that's adorable, though. Is there like a little book about you? The littlest boy. Pete, the littlest boy.
He was put in a locker.
The wood in his pants.
Well, It's why I developed humor, because some
Right.
guy, you know, people would pick on me for being small, and I would
How's
turn
that
it.
work?
I lost
Did
you.
that
What?
work out for you okay?
Every day.
Sorry.
One time, like a guy put me on a hanger, like a jacket hanger by my underwear.
No, that didn't happen to you. You saw that in a cartoon.
No,
that's not a real thing that
He
happens.
hung me up by my underwear.
Oh my God.
But he was a boy that I was friends with in 3rd and 4th grade. When I first moved to the district, we were friends. And then this happened in 7th grade. And he was like a big kid and a bully and strong, but we were still friendly, but he did that. And I don't know what happened.
Came in and like rescued you?
Huh?
Because I said, and then Bugs Bunny came in and rescued you, because this is not a real thing. I refuse to believe your experience.
I know, like I didn't hang on the wall for a while. Like it fell. I felt like, but I was up there. It was enough to pull the wedgie. Like there was a lot of pain in my crotch.
Mm-hmm.
And that day, that was during the school day. And that afternoon, I got a phone call from that kid. He called me at my house and he said, I feel horrible that I did that to you today. You've always been kind to me and I feel bad. But, you know, I was running my mouth to him, but his reaction was nuclear compared to whatever I was saying. But yeah, that was the only time I can remember where I really gotten, you know, roughed up for running my mouth, because I don't know. I turned it around and made it about me. But like that, I'm
Life
saying.
is long, Pete. It can still happen.
Oh, and then I got called a pedophile a million times, but thank you to you for talking me off that wall. No, I'm saying you develop like a lot. It probably is some. There's a reason. I wonder what. Let me just end on this. Where do you think the humor comes from? Doesn't the humor come from some of the insecurities, if not a lot, or no?
You know, I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe, you know what? That's probably fair. I actually had never really thought about it like that, because I always hear about it, especially from men saying like, well, you know, that's how I developed as a coping mechanism or a defense mechanism. I developed a sense of humor. I didn't have that, because, you know, that is always something that was sort of outward, right? Like you would make jokes and then dudes would laugh and they'd be on your side. I didn't have that experience. For me, my humor was not like really, no one seemed to get it. Like I wasn't making jokes for the good of the class, you know, like I wasn't sitting there cracking up the class at all. I was making snide remarks in the notes on my page just to keep myself interested.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're thinking of it and you're expressing it. Whether or not anybody hears it, it's still the same thing. You're having a thought and you're expressing it. I think it is.
Maybe,
you don't know how good it is.
Social validation.
Yeah, you don't know how good it is to a wider audience is a big difference, but you're still doing it. You're still expressing it. It's leaking out of you. The you know, the humor, the sarcasm, whatever it is.
Yeah, and that might have been an internal coping mechanism, maybe. I'm not sure. I haven't you know, I haven't gotten that far. We're only on like, you know, chapter 2 of my therapy sessions. We'll see.
Well, I appreciate you doing
we'll see what happens next season. Yeah.
I don't know. I do think it is genderized. I think you're right about that. I mean, obviously there's all kinds of exceptions, but I think, yeah, certainly it's different how men and women in America and our generation develop humor. And it's super interesting to talk about.
It is really interesting, actually. Can we like do a whole conversation about that another time? Because there's a lot I want to talk about.
Oh, yeah,
there.
for sure. I thought you were being sarcastic. Yeah, definitely.
No, I mean it. Yeah.
No, definitely. I think, yes, for sure. And I have a lot of thoughts about it, too, about how men see funny women and how they're intimidated by it and stuff like that. So,
I'm excited.
My main goal was to raise like the top quality I hoped my daughters would somehow acquire is confidence. And I'm pretty confident that we've done a good job with that. And tonight, Julia said something really funny. I will have probably already talked about it earlier in the show, but basically we had a screen-free day, no phones, right?
Wow, okay.
And as a result, every single time we do this, which is once a month, we do it for 24 hours, the girls turn into like amazing, creative, layered people. They start doing all kinds of stuff, art and writing and just things they don't do because of the phone. Why would you? So after dinner tonight, at the end of dinner, I say, can I just say one thing? And Julia, 14, interrupts and goes, wait. You know what he's going to say, right? And she gives the whole speech I was about to give about how amazing they are when they put their phones down. She gave the whole speech. It was probably the funniest thing she's ever done. We were all Ava couldn't even catch her breath. Her sister made her laugh so hard. Me and Val were dying laughing. So I went up to her after, about an hour after dinner. And I go, oh, man. I go, you are brilliant. You are hilarious. And we know you're beautiful. You know what that means, Julia? And she looks at me and she goes, I think it means I'm perfect.
I love her.
I go, it doesn't. You have plenty of negative qualities. Well, we're not talking about them right now.
Can your daughter teach me? Can she tutor me in self-confidence?
So anyway, we could also next time talk, about what you think might be different about girls growing up today than when you and I grew up, and how things have changed in a lot of different ways, good, better, certainly both. There's, I think, good and bad. So
we have a lot to talk about, Pete.
Thank you very much for talking to me today, as always.
Thank you.
Stand up. All right, there she goes. Tell her you appreciate her and joining us every Monday, pretty much. Always love my conversations with Maura. So revealing, so vulnerable, so relatable, so not alone. I learned so much from talking to her about so many things, from taxes to self-esteem and sexuality and aging and politics, and just awesome. It just never fails. Love talking to her. She's on Twitter at Behind Your Back. If you want to let her know you appreciated her, that would mean a lot to me. And it would mean a lot to me if you let Val know that you liked our conversation too. She's vvyoga1@gmail.com. Hire her. She's the best personal trainer. She's I got tons of testimonials from listeners. If anybody's looking for just a program, much less a weekly chat, whatever it is, you can contact her for that. She'd love to do it. Got a few openings, I think, right now. So yeah, I think she'd probably take on some new clients. I probably should have asked her. She's pretty busy, but she'd love to work with you if you're a listener, especially if you're a subscriber. She thanks you as well. Okay, so check her out as well on Facebook, Valerie Vendrame. That's all I've got for you today. Very excited to kicking off another week of great, exciting shows. Let me know who you'd like to hear on the program this week. Always love your suggestions. Keep them coming. Stand Up with Pete @gmail.com. Join us, sign up for a subscription, be a part of our community, join our weekly Thursday night happy hour hangouts. Always a riot, and looking forward to this Thursdays, which I will definitely be hosting. And that's it. That's all I got for you. You can always hang out with us on the Discord platform, where you're never alone, because there's always people that will get back to you over on that chat platform as well. Okay, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I love you. Thanks for listening. Jon Carroll, take us out.
Drawing all the plans for the stand up, but all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up. We got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up. You got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well, and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up. Stand up. Got to stand.